It was the night of November 1st, 1986, the final hours of Shabbat at the Torah High School, a quiet Orthodox Jewish yeshiva overlooking the cold Atlantic coast. The dormitory lights flickered dimly through frosted windows, and the rhythmic sound of ocean waves outside was the only thing that broke the silence. Inside, 16-year-old Chaim Weiss, a bright, soft-spoken student, had already turned in for the night. He was the kind of boy who helped younger classmates with prayers and never argued, but by morning, that gentle peace would be gone forever. When the sun rose over Long Beach, dorm counselor Rabbi Avraham Cooper walked the narrow hallway toward room 109 to wake the boys for morning prayers. He opened the door and froze. Chaim was lying still on the floor beside his bed, the blanket neatly folded at the foot. His skull had been crushed by a blunt object. His glasses sat perfectly beside him, unbroken. There was no sign of forced entry. The window was open, letting in a chilling draft that fluttered the curtains. It was as if the killer had wanted the air to carry something away, maybe his scent, maybe his guilt. Police arrived within minutes, the dormitory filled with whispers, gasps, and the quiet sobs of classmates who had just prayed with Chaim the night before. Detectives cordoned off the room with yellow tape, but inside the scene felt too deliberate. There was no blood spatter on the walls, no overturned furniture. The murder weapon was missing. Whoever did this had moved through the building like a ghost. Detective James McCarthy of the Long Beach Police Department took the lead. He'd seen homicides before, but never one that seemed almost ritualistic. The window opened despite the cold. A burning candle left on the desk, still flickering faintly when they arrived. An untouched piece of challah bread beside it. To an outsider, it looked like nothing. As winter closed in, police received a new lead. A witness from the nearby synagogue claimed to have seen someone wandering near the dormitory late that night, a man wearing a dark coat and hat, carrying something heavy in his hand. When shown photos of staff and older students, he hesitated, then pointed slowly at one face, the face of someone inside the yeshiva. And when detectives knocked on that person's door, what they found inside changed the direction of the entire investigation. The knock echoed through the narrow dorm hallway, hard enough to wake the few remaining students still sleeping inside. Detective McCarthy stood outside the small, wood-paneled door, his breath misting in the cold morning air. Behind him, a uniformed officer tightened his grip on a flashlight, though the sun was already beginning to rise through the fog-streaked windows. The nameplate read R. Klein, one of the senior students and Chaim's upstairs neighbor. When the door creaked open, Klein appeared pale, his eyes sunken from sleepless nights. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his yarmulke. "Detective, what's happening?" he asked, his voice low, wary. Inside, the room smelled faintly of incense and candle wax. On the desk sat an identical candle to the one found in Chaim's room, half burned, melted to its brass holder. McCarthy's eyes flicked to the corner, where a heavy steel menorah leaned against the wall. It was dented along one arm, a dent that, at a glance, could match the blunt force trauma described by the coroner. He nodded to his partner, who bagged the menorah carefully. Klein began to stammer. That's from last year's Hanukkah, sir. It broke when I dropped it." But McCarthy didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on a photo pinned to the bulletin board. Chaim, smiling beside a group of classmates, including Klein, during a school picnic just months B. For a word of the search spread fast. By noon, the yeshiva was surrounded by reporters again. "Police investigate student linked to dorm murder," one headline read. Yet, even as the rumors grew louder, the evidence refused to hold. The dented menorah, according to forensics, carried no blood, no fingerprints. The candles matched dozens found around the school. Every path McCarthy took led back to the same dead end. Still, something about Klein unsettled him. During questioning, the boy repeated his timeline, never slipping once. He said he had gone to bed at 10 p.m., read a few psalms, and heard nothing. "We don't talk after Shabbat," he explained. "Everyone keeps quiet. Maybe that's why no one heard." McCarthy leaned forward. "And the window? You keep yours open?" Klein's eyes flicked up, confused. "No, it's against rules to let the sea air in. The rabbi says it rusts the hinges." The detective scribbled the note. An open window, against rules, left by a killer who vanished. Someone had known the school's traditions and defied them. By late evening, McCarthy returned to the dorm. The other rooms were empty, sheets stripped, beds cold. Only Chaim's room remained untouched, sealed behind yellow tape. He pushed the door open again, the same cold breeze brushing his face. The candle had burned down completely now, leaving a wax puddle on the desk. He crouched near the window, staring at the sill. Under the faint moonlight, something caught his eye. A thin streak of wax smeared along the outside edge, as if a candle had been carried out through the window and down the fire escape. A ritual, or an escape route. Back at headquarters, McCarthy cross-checked the dorm's keys. Only staff had access to duplicates. That's when he noticed something strange. The spare key to room 109 had been signed out. Just once, 2 nights before the murder, signed out by Rabbi Cooper Haar himself, the same man who had discovered Chaim's body. When confronted, Cooper's calm demeanor didn't crack. "I signed it to fix the light," he said. "The bulb was flickering. I gave the key back immediately." But the logbook showed no return signature. McCarthy's instincts screamed. The rabbi wasn't lying for himself. He was covering for someone. Later that week, a student quietly slipped a note under McCarthy's office door. It was scrawled in shaky handwriting. The rabbi wasn't alone that night. Someone else had the key. No name, no date, just a warning, and a small drawing of a candle beside a bed. McCarthy returned to the yeshiva once more. The halls were silent, the students long gone home for winter break. Only the sound of the waves and the low hum of fluorescent lights filled the air. As he walked toward Chaim's door, he noticed a faint inscription etched into the frame. Hebrew letters so small they had been missed before. They spelled tahara, the word for ritual purification after death. McCarthy's hand froze on the doorway. Someone had performed a sacred rite inside a crime scene, and that someone had to know the customs, the timing, and the rules that no outsider could ever understand. He exhaled slowly, his voice barely a whisper in the empty hall. "This wasn't random," he said. "Someone believed they were cleansing him." But when the crime lab called the next morning, the twist was far darker. The blood on Chaim's bedsheet, though almost invisible, matched not one, but 2 people. Chaim's and another student still missing from the dorm. Detective McCarthy didn't sleep that night. The ocean wind hissed against the precinct windows as he stared at the lab report under the desk lamp. 2 DNA profiles. One belonged to Chaim Weiss, the other, unidentified, though partial matches suggested a student enrolled under a false name, someone who had attended classes briefly that fall and disappeared. Just before the murder, his file was missing from the school's archives. By morning, McCarthy and 2 officers were back at the yeshiva. The hallways were empty, desks stacked, walls stripped of posters. But something felt wrong, a presence that hadn't left. They started with the records office. Boxes of attendance sheets sat untouched, labeled by semester. When they reached fall 1986, one box had been resealed with fresh tape. Inside, several pages were missing, torn out carefully, leaving behind faint paper shreds and ink smears. Among the few remaining sheets, McCarthy spotted a faint note in pencil beside one student's name. Transferred, per rabbi's request. The name was barely legible, written in Hebrew letters, Y. Horowitz, but there was no transfer destination listed, no address, no family contact. It was as if the boy had vanished into thin air. McCarthy's next stop was the rabbi's office. Rabbi Cooper sat behind his desk, hands folded, eyes weary. The detective laid the note down in front of him. Y. Horowitz, McCarthy said. "Where did he go?" The rabbi's fingers trembled slightly. "That student left weeks before Chaim's death," he said softly. "He was troubled. We thought it best." McCarthy leaned closer. "Troubled how?" The rabbi hesitated. "He struggled with faith. He questioned traditions, spent time alone at night, lighting candles in the dorm hallway, praying by himself." "And you gave him a key?" McCarthy pressed. Silence. Then the rabbi whispered, "He begged to stay for one more night after he left. Said he needed to say goodbye to a friend. I didn't think..." His voice broke. "I didn't think it would end like this." McCarthy left without another word. Outside, the sea roared as if echoing the boy's secret. A troubled student, a midnight ritual, an open window. The pieces were beginning to align, but one thing still didn't fit. Why sea? Chaim? Why the candle, the bread, the open air? That night, McCarthy revisited the dorm one final time. The janitors had begun cleaning out rooms, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. Room 109 was still sealed, untouched since the crime. He opened the door and felt the familiar rush of cold air. The window, still open, looked out toward the boardwalk and the black Atlantic waves. He switched off his flashlight and let the moonlight fill the room. The faint wax streaks glowed silver on the windowsill, a path leading outward. Following it, he climbed down the fire escape, his boots scraping metal, and landed softly on the damp sand below. There, half buried in the sand beneath the window, was a rusted tin candle holder. Inside it, a stub of white wax that had never fully melted. The wick had burned halfway, then died, snuffed out by the wind. McCarthy knelt down, turning it over. On the bottom was a carved Hebrew inscription, the same as before, Tahara. It hit him all at once. Horowitz hadn't killed out of hatred or rage. He believed he was performing a ritual, purifying Chaim from something, a misguided act, driven by faith twisted into delusion. In the following weeks, the police traced leads through New York, Pennsylvania, even Canada. But Horowitz was never found. His name faded from public record. His photo circulated only in confidential files. The case grew cold. Yet every year, on the anniversary of Chaim Weiss's death, something strange happened. Students returning to the yeshiva reported finding a candle burning outside room 109 at dawn, perfectly centered on the windowsill. No one ever saw who placed it there. Security cameras showed nothing but empty halls. When McCarthy retired in the late 90s, he kept the tin candle holder locked in his desk. He'd look at it sometimes, tracing the engraving with his thumb, wondering if the boy who lit that final candle still walked among the living, or if he had vanished beneath the same waves that had carried so many secrets away from Long Beach. The case was reopened decades later, with new DNA methods and renewed hope. But, even then, the truth stayed buried, somewhere between devotion and madness, guilt and faith. Because in the Torah high school dormitory, the light never truly went out. And every November 1st, when the cold air slips through those windows again, it still smells faintly of candle wax. So if you ever find yourself walking past Long Beach at night and see a single light flickering in the upper window of an empty dorm, don't get too close. Some mysteries burn forever. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and prepare yourself. Because next time, the darkness might be closer than you think.